All right, question 6 for the AP Stats practice test. What this question is getting at is whether the student understands quartiles. So here is one way to think about quartiles. In this case, what we're talking about is the amount of money people spend on dinner in an Italian restaurant. Think about you got some number line, all right, with 0 over here and some huge amount of money over here. All the quartiles do is they divide the data up into quarters, as the name kind of suggests. So the first quartile is the point, so that a quarter of the people spend less than that amount. The second quartile is the point, so that 2/4 of the people, in other words, 50% of the people, spend less than that amount. But wait, if 25% spend less than quartile 1 and 50% spend less than quartile 2, then 50 minus 25, or 25%, spend between quartiles 1 and 2. The third quartile, as you would likely guess, is the point for which 3/4 of the people spend less than that amount. So 3/4 of the people are somewhere to the left of this dollar amount. But 50% of them are to the left of this dollar amount, so that means 25% of them are in here. And if 75% spend less than Q3, the remaining 25% spend more than Q3. All the quartiles do is they divide the data into quarters, 25% in each of these different groups. Okay, I'm being a little bit loose with how I describe these. Because your data is discrete instead of continuous, these could be slightly off. The number of people that you're looking at might not be divisible by 4, so it won't be exactly 25%, but pretty damn close. If you keep this little picture in mind for quartiles, you can answer this question, or really any question about quartiles. So in this case, Q1 is $36.27, and Q2 is $44.27, and Q3 is $58.97. So I was going to say this isn't drawn to scale, but it's actually pretty good. But whatever, none of that matters. At least half of the customers spent less than or equal to $44.27. Well, here's $44.27. It's the second quartile. Half the people spend less than the second quartile. Half the people spend more. They have to throw in this little qualifier, at least, to account for the fact that somebody might have spent exactly $44.27, or to account for the fact that the number of customers might not be divisible by 4. Ignoring the at least part, which I think is just kind of over confusing this question. Half the people are less than Q2, half are more than Q2. That sounds perfect. What does B say? 75% of the customers spent between 36 and 58? No, 36 is the first quartile, 58 is the third quartile. As we can see from our picture here, 50% of the customers spent between these two amounts. Again, you might have to throw some qualifiers in here to worry about ties and strange cases. You might want to say something like approximately 50% of the customers spent between these two amounts, if you want to make this a true statement. What about C? Pretend it says approximately 25% of the customers spent less than or equal to 58, and the remaining 75% spent greater than or equal to 58. Ooh, that's close. That 58 number is our third quartile. 75% are less than that, 25% are above that. Is that what this said? Almost. This said 25 is less than and 75 is more than. They switched up these two words on you. If you switch this 25 and 75, I don't know why one's written in English and one is left as numbers, then this becomes a true statement. But the way it's written, it's false. What about D? The mean amount spent by customers is $44.27. Again, got to be a little bit careful here. That's certainly possible. It's possible that the mean amount is $44.27. But what the question says is which of the following statements must be true? And this doesn't have to be true. The median amount spent by customers is $44.27. That's absolutely true. But the mean is not necessarily equal to the median, and therefore this is a false statement. Finally, a majority of customers spent $44.27. I think what this sentence is meant to say is a majority of customers spent exactly $44.27. And that's definitely not true. If there's an implied at least, like if I asked you, did you spend $44 on dinner? And you're like, yeah, man, I spent 60. Then this statement comes true because approximately 50% of people spend at least $44.27. But I don't think that's what this says. I think what this is going for is exactly this. You might argue it's a bad test question because it's a little bit ambiguous. If I were writing this test, I would put this word right here so that I know for damn sure that this is false. But hopefully if this were your test, you wouldn't even get down to E. You would have looked at A and already known that that was the right answer and moved on.